So we wrapped up From Russia with Love 8 with 8C on Tuesday night with what was the longest THI show ever recorded. I think my voice is paying for it a bit today. And yet again, it was packed with anecdotal and dot-connecting information that was connecting it all so fast. It was looping rather rapidly. And like the hamster on the wheel that kept running, so did the wheel. But the question is, does the wheel cause the moving or just the hamster? And we have been that hamster running the wheel for millennia, not recognizing the fact that if you step off, the wheel or the loop stops. We just kept running faster and faster and hoping for the wheel to stop or the view to change. But it never. Because if you keep doing the same things, you will get the same view, the same actions, the same responses, and the same outcomes as before. This time, it was different. Outside the wheel, the dark forces just laughed at us. Yes, they gave us the wheel, but we jumped on it and ran it ourselves. And the core of every one of their programs that have been ran on us in deceit is we play and run their programs for them. People complain about police states. They don't need police states. They just ask the people to be busybodies, and they do it. Divide and conquer, the same. Hating on other peoples or countries, despite never even meeting the people or visiting the said country. We allowed their banks to flourish because we gave them our money. We allowed their puppets to run our country, mainly into the ground, as we voted for them. And we allowed them to poison our children with vaccines and drugs, etc. Why? Because we didn't bother to investigate or question what was in them. We assumed. And some will say, but we didn't know, Thomas. Exactly, you didn't know because you never asked the questions. And I'll give you an example how and why. If a person comes up to you that you don't know, you and your children in the street, and says, can I inject your child or children with this vaccine? And I will give you a $25 shopping voucher at Walgreens. Would you accept it? And allow the strange person to inject your children? Well, the answer would be no. And yet you don't know who the Walgreens shop assistant is, and yet you still get flu shots. You also don't know your doctor or nurse giving the injections to you either. You don't know their background. You accept it. But how and why are they different to the strange person in the street offering vaccines? The answer is, they're not. But your programming tells you that teachers, doctors, health experts, psychologists, politicians and church people are all nice, knowledgeable and with your best interests in mind. Wrong thinking. Because that is based on assumptions again. And assumptions are not truth or facts. The example earlier of what they were doing to the Puerto Ricans, who took part in that? The doctors. No doubt with brown envelopes in the back pocket. And our story has shown over and over again those assumptions have been the ruination of us. Now, am I saying all those people in those positions are bad? No. Just ignorant. And in some cases, arrogant. Because they have done exactly what their clients have done and assumed that what they were taught was correct. When clearly we have all not been taught, but educated, which is training of animals. We have been educated just enough to operate their system, but not enough to understand it or the hidden meanings or intentions behind it. Big difference. And people often say, how can we stop all this and turn around and say, I'm just one person doing this? Which is limitation speak when you analyse it. Why are we talking that way? In limitation. Let's look at it in terms of a virus. One cell, which is interesting that they call all matter in the body that makes up our bodies as cells. Cells are also prisons. But that one cell mutates into 2, and then 4, and then 8, and so on. Are you saying that you are a devolutionary cell and not capable of doubling your cell? If everyone wakes up one person, who then goes on to wake up another person, have you not issued a virus of good into the community? And what do they call it when it reaches a certain point? And then the 40 to 60% of people who are designated as followers of patterns, it goes viral, which is a derivative of virus. So our own type of virus becomes the antidote, does it not? The alt media itself is a virus to the system, not just the portal people. Why? Because it's siphoning their energy away. This is what this whole movement is about, siphoning the energy they stole off us via banks, religions, governments, spiritual groups, fake gods, ETs, and portal people. And this is the essence of the trust. It's not about pieces of paper with numbers on. It's all about returning life force energy they have stolen off us. And if you think of it in terms of the money, then you're not as awake as you thought you were. And clearly require cutting loose more of the old system and the programming you have allowed to consume your thinking and vessel. Now, it only takes 10 to 12% for anything to go viral. And people have said, well, I'm just one person. That if I left that organisation, that wouldn't make a difference. But you are forgetting you'll have made friends in that organisation. Now those friends have doubts. And people will follow. People will walk away from things quicker than when they joined if they feel they're becoming a minority. That's how it works. So how did we get into this mess? Mainly through laziness. Not willing to learn, only to copy and repeat and just follow the leader. Except the leader was corrupt on all levels. And people will say, but we were duped. And I agree. but the stronger ones see through the illusion. That was the key to the last piece before the music break. The stronger ones will see through the illusion. And the key is making everyone stronger, not weaker. Where we elevate each other, not drag each other down, which has been the common practice, often via the competitive and comparative mindset. And the key is to chart your own path. And yet so many just copy their parents. And that in and of itself becomes a hidden copy and repeat program, passed on from generation to generation. It's not charting a new path, it's just repeating the old. The old didn't work. The new will. But over aeons, humanity has become inherently lazy, particularly mind-wise. And some can argue all they like against that statement, but it is true. We have so many skill sets and abilities, and yet so many people will not use them. They all remain latent and hidden inside of you. And yet so many stay inside because so many seek the external gratifications. That's the illusion. You can wait for NASA to build rockets and spacecraft to travel to the stars, or you can work on yourself and go yourself. Which is more beneficial? Now, many can't do it as a collective, as we are too immature and lazy, waiting for things to come to them rather than they going to it. And people will often say, well, or, well, it doesn't matter. But then you learn that matter is a beam of light. So are you saying we should ignore the light? Everything matters. Because as From Russia with Love has shown, everything in their world is all interconnected and was locked tight so much that the majority of the people were oblivious to it. So that clearly to the dark, everything matters. And we must replicate that in a light way. Now, the key to spirituality is to go within. And you don't need fake shamans, lamas, or priests to do so. They have been taught rubbish on a bigger scale than we have. Perhaps the word consciousness will make things clearer. Perhaps this is a light bulb moment coming up. There are lots of new age and alt media bandying that word around, consciousness. But I suspect only a few really understand it or the concept. The original version of the word of consciousness arose in the 1630s, which means internal knowledge. Meaning state of being aware of what passes in one's own mind. From the 1670s, meaning a state of being aware of anything from the 1746. Now, whilst many will equate it to be or being aware, I will ask, Aware of what? Aware that politicians are corrupt, churches are fake, banks rape us. Yes, all examples of being aware, or awake as we say. But they are all external awarenesses, are they not? Consciousness is internal knowledge, not external. Consciousness is about you. Now do you understand what I've been telling you all along? THI is about you gaining your internal knowledge. The external knowledge is largely for awareness of your surroundings and to subsequently protect your inner knowledge and being via consciousness. Hello, McFly. Essentially, you've been on a knowledge-consuming exercise. Perhaps the term I use in the shows called sin eating makes more sense and now has a deeper meaning or trigger to it. Knowledge or sin eating, you have to consume it and then process it, with the goal then to convert it or transmute it to gain energy, power from it. Then when it's all filtered, you poop out what is not needed. Sin means knowledge, not evil. And we've been sin eating quite a lot with this show. Let's look at some of the details of the show. And some will argue it's only a few lamas or priests that are doing this stuff. And you can't just dismiss things because of a few bad apples. Well, if that's your thinking, you're missing the point. It's not the individuals I'm referring to, it's the program. Who operates it becomes irrelevant. It's the same as government. Parties and presidents change, but it all remains the same. Why? Because it's the same program. And yet so many of us follow it. But there's also a reason why they say following it blindly. Because you don't see what is going on. And it is a spell cast. Follow it blindly. It's a spell cast. To make those with eyes to not see. But once you see, quote unquote, their whole illusion program falls apart. That's the difference. Another thing we referenced in an earlier From Russia with Love show was the Gardens of Eden. Not one, but 4. The original one was in India. And then we heard of the story whereby Cain was cast out of the Garden of Eden for murdering his brother and sent to the land of Nod to the east. So I looked what was east of that region. And lo and behold, you find Tibet. Coincidence? Also in the last show, he mentioned that Mary got pregnant by the Holy Ghost, they say. So if Jesus was the Son of God, that means God is a ghost, does it not? They then tell you it is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Nobody asked what happened to the mother. Immaculate Conception again. Dearie me. But the word ghost as a word did not come into the language until the 15th century. So how can the church base this on something that was alleged to have happened 2019 years ago? Like the letter J never existed until the same time period as the word ghost. It makes no sense. The term ghastly derives from the term ghostly, and no, it's not a coincidence. But let's look deeper into the word ghost, shall we, given it's a relatively new term in comparison to the timeline of the Bible. Another word for ghost was ghoul, meaning an evil spirit who seizes things and who fed on the dead until they were taught how to feed on the living. We're talking about jinns here. And it was also referenced as a demon. So you have G for ghoul and then host. The ghoul host. Whether that G is indicative of the Freemasonry symbol remains to be seen, but it would not surprise me if it's actually referenced in just that. And the ghost in Christian references is clearly undefined. But it has to be male if it got Mary pregnant, or maybe not. Because in their world, they just make shit up as they go along. And critical thinking on the matter destroys their illusion. The information makes no sense unless you are comatose. But it's not your toes in a coma, it's your brain and thinking pattern. If sense is common, why is it rare when it comes to these programs? All of it is fake Jewish Hebrewism, ruining everything that was sacred here, backed by their Anunnaki counterparts, and yes, they are linked, and one and the same. They went about distorting our thoughts. Yes, that is where the term thoughts came from. Thoth. And much of life as we knew it is and was fake. The masks worked well, but no more they don't. It's collapsing around them. Thoth is another one like Solomon, supposed to have been helping here, and fell for the dark seducement. Another of the Pleiadian Nibiru crew who wreaked havoc here. And his group of avians, not the fake blue chicken variety, are one of the 5 groups of beings that made up the Anunnaki. As an added piece to 8a, and we discussed the missing zodiac of Ophiuchus, the constellations of the zodiac are generally associated with the months of the Hebrew calendar. Oops. Why? Because it's lunar based is why, and why the Jewish people follow Lilith, the Dark Mother, also known as the Kali Ma, which means Dark Mother. Now this is not to be taken as a denigration of Jewish people. Not. They've been used as pawns more than we have, and they, like the rest of the world, have to see the illusion and break through it. Now, some of the more religious sectors of the alt media are crying currently, saying the cabal is ending the connection to the God. What they really mean is the God of the book. And yes, I agree, that is exactly the case, but not the way they think. Because the God of the book is not yours or my God. And so what they're doing, they are actually doing us a favour in a roundabout way. But there's always a hidden agenda. And what they're trying to do is creating a new God, which is them, with the power centre in Jerusalem. As one illusion falls, they create a new one. The word God needs to be universally replaced with source. And people told their source, not God, is within them. And it never was external.